Jim, welcome to Edinburgh after a difficult journey getting here. We're enormously grateful to you for coming and leading a discussion on a panel on North Korea, a part of the world which very few people know much about, and given our mission here to educate and inspire tomorrow's leaders to engage with Asia, learning a little bit about this part of the world is hugely helpful. And I don't know if there's a way in which you could sort of encapsulate your thoughts on North Korea and its future, and whether this is something that we should be optimistic about, realistic or pessimistic.
That's a good question. The difficulty always with North Korea is that, to paraphrase Mr. Rumsfeld, there are knowns and unknowns and known unknowns and all the rest of it. North Korea is complex because it's little understood. It's subject of scholarly study, but most people, it doesn't impinge on their lives at all. Except there are periodic crises over usually military-related things. And this leads to a press frenzy about, oh, it's all going to be difficult, terrible, or ultimately it's going to be war. And I think up until the change of US presidents, one would have normally said, well, yeah, but there's a mechanism that's been in existence for a long time to diffuse the tensions, and there's no doubt about the tensions, but it has worked. And despite everything, the armistice is held. Now we have a new and different approach from the American president, or apparently we do. It's very hard really to work out what Mr. Trump's policies are really about.
Beyond the rhetoric.
Beyond the rhetoric, yes. The rhetoric can be very fierce. The one straw I grasp out of it all is that despite the rhetoric and despite some military moves, really neither North Korea nor the US has gone on to anything like a war footing.
No.
And that provides a modest degree of hope in the present tension. But I think there is tension, there are difficulties. It's not easy to see how we get out of them because thoughts once tweeted or spoken in speeches are difficult to pull back. But all Mr. Trump's predecessors have drawn back from the military option, which is the one to war, because the consequences for US allies, Japan and South Korea, and their populations, and the possible wider implications for the world in terms of world trade and so on, are so horrendous to consider. Hitherto, everybody has pulled back, known that you can go so far, but you mustn't go too far.
It was said, wasn't it, of a previous president, he said, speak quietly but carry a big stick. We seem to have speaking loudly at the moment, and it's not clear whether the big stick would or could be indeed be used. I
think that's absolutely true, that there is a lot of speaking loudly. It's partly the style. The North Koreans then respond in their characteristic style, which is also over the top. North Koreans don't just cross the road. They fight a death-defying struggle, rifle in hand, to get from one side to the other.
It's a national characteristic.
Yeah, they mean the same thing. They want to get across the road. But the language is horrendous, but the reality is often very different. And certainly on the North Korean side, they have threatened to attack the United States directly before now, and they threaten to do this and they threaten to do that. And then usually these things are diffused.
Now we know that as we speak here, that the President of the United States is actually in the region. The question on everybody's sort of mind is China's position relative to this. That the narrative that we have is that the President Trump is endeavouring to persuade the Chinese, President Xi, to be robust because that China holds the key. Do you agree with that or not, with that assessment?
One can understand why people think that. In the past, the Chinese certainly had considerable influence over Korea, as they did over a number of other countries in East Asia. If you go to Korea, the architecture, the layout of the cities, it's all Chinese in origin.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you go to Korea, they're talking Korean. These are people who've spent several thousand years making damn sure they're not Chinese.
Mm.
So north and south, there is a suspicion of China. Inevitably, they're small countries, and there's a huge neighbour, which in the past has tried to dominate them.
Mm.
The Korean Peninsula has a long land border with China.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that China can sort of at will control the Korean Peninsula.
No.
It has its own considerations. The economy of northeast China and North Korea, the economies are not separated, they're quite closely, or have become quite closely.
Inextricably linked, some might
Yeah.
say.
Very much so.
Mm.
And that matters in an area of China that is quite depressed.
Yes. As contrasted with the other parts of China.
Yes, yes. I mean, this is an area that was industrialised.
Mm.
The industry has declined, leaving huge problems with polluted soil as well as people with no jobs.
Yeah.
But also China perhaps has a certain sentimental or perhaps more realistic attitude about that if another communist country goes, then the pressure on China becomes even stronger. So it doesn't want to see North Korea disappear.
No.
And it certainly doesn't want to see the United States forces further up the Korean Peninsula than they are already.
By the DMZ.
And indeed, I think the Chinese would be very happy if those American forces were pulled out.
Good. Jim, thank you. We actually found out talking after your panel discussion, where I know a lot of people found what you and your fellow panelists had to say extraordinarily interesting. And I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Scotland Institute for making it up here on the Iron Horse, without some difficulty, and for spending your time and sharing your knowledge with us. So, Jim, thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad to have come. I thought for one moment you were going to say for making it all up. But I think what the three of us did, and we didn't actually collaborate in advance, but what the three of us did was to try and indicate that there are a lot of myths,
yes,
and that you have to go behind those myths for understanding of what problems are in Northeast Asia, including the problem of North Korea.
And that's very helpful because it's central to what we're endeavouring to do, to educate and inspire people here. So, Jim, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.